The Sectarianism Project was launched in July 2001 by recently retired Social Inclusion Officer Alison Logan. Launched by Glasgow City Council Education Services in partnership with both Rangers and Celtic football clubs, the Church of Scotland and the Catholic Archdiocese in Glasgow, and anti-sectarian charity Nil by Mouth. The stated aim was to raise awareness about sectarianism and to challenge religiously aggravated prejudice and discrimination. Initially, the project was delivered by community groups, and gradually the focus changed to become a school-based education programme through the support of individuals such as Celine McKinley, Geraldine Parkinson and many other teaching and education staff. This is their reflections on the 20th anniversary of the launch of SOS.
I think sectarian means that people don't like each other because of their religion.
I think sectarian's a good thing because it's what I believe in.
I think everybody acts in a sectarian way sometimes.
We hate them, they hate us. That's the way it is.
It's like friendship between like two different parts of like life.
My two main focuses within the community education course were community development, which obviously encompasses equality, and youth work, which is equality of opportunity for young people. So working with Sense Over Sectarianism to deliver a community-based project was ideal for me, great experience. And as a result of that, rather than leave a work placement to chance, I approached Alison about coming with Sense Over Sectarianism to do my work placement because I thought it'd be really relevant to something that I'm interested in, but also I knew that I could develop a lot working with Alison for a period of 4 months because obviously absolutely the top of the game, and I never looked back.
I'm Alison Logan. I was appointed to the SOS programme in the summer of 2001. I worked with SOS up until 2019. I arrived in Glasgow City Council and was given 2 box files and asked to make a project out of it that challenged sectarianism across the city. I had family members who were part of the Orange Order. I had my granda that lived with us who would constantly make comments. But it also stemmed from my previous work, which was around a lot of equalities issues. So it was a kind of commitment to social justice and thinking about some of those bigger issues for society.
She had so much experience and so much youth work experience. I think that's what we had in common. We were delivering informal education in a formal environment, but we were able to deliver on our own terms, deliver and develop resources that we knew would be effective for kids, using youth work techniques, which really bring out the conversations and the debates that you need to have in this area.
The starting point was about setting up community projects, not to try and change the whole world, but to work with those few individuals who were happy to take on the issue, and then to use that as a starting point to get others involved. And one of the really early projects was a project in 2 primary schools in Anderson, where it was actually the janitors that were involved in it. And the janitor came to me, I'm sick to death of the windows in the school getting panned in because we're a Prodi school and the Catholic schools along the road.
I was looking for new projects and new initiatives to take forward in the school as part of my new role. So when I contacted my good friend and colleague Alison Logan for these resources for our school, she introduced me to SOS. And she introduced me to this really exciting project that was fairly new and there hadn't been much work undertaken across the city with it. So what I did know was there were some other schools in the other part of the city where a denominational school and a non-denominational school would work together in partnership where they had never worked before.
So I got involved with SOS. First of all, I was coordinating one of the community funded projects. I was a university student. I was learning community work, and it was an amazing opportunity to work with the community around the issue of sectarianism. We were creating posters with primary school kids, and these were then showcased around the city.
I would say 2 of the biggest champions of the work in the city in terms of schools were Geraldine Parkinson and Celine McKinley, both who, when they were deputy head teachers, got heavily involved in the project. For Geraldine, she saw what was happening with her kids and just had a real passion for the work. Celine was the deputy at Ibrox Primary, so we approached the learning community and asked the learning community to think about bringing the schools together across the learning community to try and pilot the work and see how it would go with that. Celine, as a deputy, was asked to head it up and got so heavily involved she started off by doing a questionnaire with the kids around, because teachers were saying we don't need this in our schools, this isn't something that's appropriate, we don't think our kids have sectarian attitudes.
So I had over 150 surveys and I couldn't believe the responses. Some of the children said that they thought a Protestant was someone who worshipped the Queen, and they thought a Catholic was someone who went to church. So the actual information I got from the children was unbelievable, and that was I think the first challenge, because it was about changing people's points of views and children's attitudes, and it was working through Communities United. It was finding opportunities to take children on the Glasgow bus tour together and matching children up with different schools. So it was like Ibrox Primary and St Marnock's Primary, for example, two schools working together, going to each other's schools, visiting each other's churches, going to the synagogue, going to the mosque, going to Celtic Park and going to Rangers.
And some of the answers that came back were amazing. And it was when she shared the answers with some of those questions with the kids that the teachers realised they had some work to do.
Lucy and Natalie are unique in that they're really the first generation of young people to come through the three main stages of our education resources pack that we look at it in terms of multi-intervention as opposed to single intervention. So they both read Divided City and did the workshops.
Growing up, I was told, for example, not to wear like football colours if I was walking around certain areas. So I think for me, my experience of sectarianism maybe mostly came through my parents or my grandparents and other family members who had first-hand experience of sectarianism.
Like I agree, like football's kind of fun, but see when they walk about the streets shouting things or they argue with each other on Facebook, it really aggravates me because I'm like, it's a game of football. And I'm like, why would you hate the other person that much because they're kicking a ball about? It just didn't make sense to me. And also it's nothing about Protestant and Catholics anymore, it's more here anyway, it's just about Rangers and Celtic, which is stupid.
My earliest experience with the Sense Over Sectarianism Project probably started in Primary 7. We were doing the Divided City book, so that was a whole class project where we read through the book and then done some analysis of the chapters and stuff like that.
So Divided City is a novel which is set in Glasgow. It's set in different areas of Glasgow. It's about two boys who meet each other accidentally. One's a Protestant and one's a Catholic. And it's about how they come together to help a boy who's a refugee. One is a staunch Protestant and one's a Catholic, and when they clash, they can fall out. But it's about friendship that overcomes and about change and about accepting each other, and how in the end they both realise it's okay to be different. It doesn't matter where we come from, what school we go to, what church we go to, what families say. It's about friendships and about diversity.
We then read a play called Scarf for Life, and the work for Scarf for Life ran alongside the trip to Ireland to Corrymeela, which was a trip between two different schools. It was St Mungo's and East Bank Academy, so a whole mixture of pupils from different backgrounds to again try and break down the barriers of sectarianism.
That was interesting when we read it in school, because doing plays, sometimes they can be boring, like Shakespeare and stuff, like it's not relatable to us at all, but then we read that play and it was kind of interesting to see how it panned out and who wanted to go as what person and how we wanted to act it out, and I don't know, it was just fun to do something that was relatable to us.
We are the people. Aye, we are.
Growing up, coming from a community in the East End, me and my peers sort of grew up with some experiences of sectarianism, but it wasn't until we started reading books like Divided City that we maybe gained a more formal insight into the themes and understood the meaning behind it and the impact behind it.
You've got a parent who, after the first session, had made a complaint to the school about the content of that session, and at that point both myself and Alison worked with the school to find out what the issue was, and it turns out the parent was unhappy about the history of sectarianism that I'd shared and felt that it was quite biased towards one side.
Some adults didn't really understand some of the work around SOS, and at times parents or carers would maybe be a wee bit uncomfortable about some of the things that we were looking at. We'd be looking at the history of religion and the history of things like the Orange Order, the history of football clubs, and maybe asking our children to think about a situation that they've ever been in before where they face prejudice or they face sectarianism.
Yeah, it was It was quite confronting for me because I didn't realise that this was going to be such an issue, but someone felt really strongly that I'd spoken about the Irish potato famine and not the Cornish potato famine.
I think the issue for lots of people was it was just part and parcel of everyday life, and the feeling was that we were making a mountain out of a molehill in lots of ways. So the kind of sense of, you know, why are you challenging this? This is just normal. This is Glasgow. This is how we are. So I think it was more that sort of sense, and kind of having to challenge people's perceptions that it was an everyday issue and it was okay to talk like that and it was okay to behave like that.
Children and parents would say, my child is not setting foot in Ibrox, or vice versa. It was exactly the same. Or my child is not going to a Catholic church, or not going to a Church of Scotland church, not going to a synagogue, or not going to the mosque. So it took lots of means with parents to break all that down.
I think we need to shift the narratives through education, but also through everyone else taking responsibility as well. We're doing a lot of work in schools. The buy-in from schools has been phenomenal. The buy-in from teachers is excellent. The buy-in from young people is excellent. But we need other people to help us. We need statutory bodies. We need football authorities. We need football clubs. We need everybody to get behind us, parents in particular. We do good work with kids, but then they go back to their own communities, and a lot of the work that we do is undermined by that. We want people to express themselves in a positive manner.
I think it is really hard to quantify where the shift has happened in the city. I think the biggest thing for me was starting out and finding it difficult to get 6 people in a room to talk about it, to suddenly having 95% of schools, so primary schools across the city, actively engaging.
So the Centre of our Sectarianism Project, I believe, has been integral to the change that's happened in the city in terms of raising awareness and education opportunities around sectarianism. And we can look at role models round about us. The Violence Reduction Unit managed to bring knife crime down by 60% when people thought that that couldn't happen. But when agencies work together and we put proper resources together, we can make change.
One time we went in, primary 7s were making their confirmation, and they asked if our children could go along to that service. And prior to that, and prior to doing this project, that would never ever have happened. But what happened was that the parents were happy, parents came, and they went into the church, and Father McAlinden invited all of our children to come down and get a blessing from him, and the parents were happy. That's a million miles away from where we were.
We have kids who have come through the whole gambit of the work, from primary 7 through to some of the work that Mark and Michael would have done in 1st and 2nd year, through to some of the 5th year work that they would have done. And you see those kids whose attitudes are different. You see them thinking differently, you see them behaving differently. But the biggest thing for me is that people are actually prepared to talk about it, and that's a huge change.
Hands up who's heard of the word discrimination before? Right, quite a few of us. Okay, so who can tell me what discrimination is?
So discrimination is like if you hate someone, like a Celtic fan, and you don't like them, like this sometimes happens at Celtic games and Rangers games. If you don't like them, you abuse them, which is discrimination because maybe they support different teams.
Good. Getting out into these primary schools and working with the kids, getting the knowledge out to the kids so that they can then take that on throughout their lives. The young people in Glasgow are probably one of the most important people in Glasgow. They can then take that on. They've got such a wide scope to then go and spread that word, that message that sectarianism is wrong and that it's bad, and it's them that's got the opportunity to try and stop it and try to reduce it.
The biggest legacy that Alison's left is a divided city. Yeah, we went on to help with the development of that and the further more delivery of it, and training teachers and CPD sessions for teachers and students to build capacity to deliver it. But if she hadn't started with it, it wouldn't be here. What's really solid about Divided City is it's a really good resource. People want to read it, kids want to engage with it, they enjoy doing the lessons. It's almost become a rite of passage to do Divided City in Primary 7 now, and that's really important. And I think if there's any legacy at all, that's it. The most important piece of work in tackling sectarianism in Scotland was originated by Alison.
And if we're talking about Glasgow as a changing city and as a city that is absolutely fabulous to live in and be in, let's create an environment in our city that mirrors that and becomes inclusive and celebrates the fact that we are all different.